Good evening. You're watching the news from the Sultan of Oman television. First, the headlines. The Supreme Council for Planning stresses works of the Comprehensive Development Strategy for the Governorate of Musandam is starting. His Excellency the Minister of Manpower says the ministry is correcting the expatriate workers' status according to labour market requirements. And 19 civilians are killed by Syrian barrel bomb attack in Aleppo, and the United Nations say more than 4 million Syrians have fled abroad since 2011. Those are the headlines, and now the news in detail. The Supreme Council for Planning stressed that comprehensive development strategy for the Governorate of Musandam will be worked on during the 9th five-year development plan 2016 to 2020. It will focus on the economic development of the tourism and fisheries wealth sectors, site planning and services provided to citizens. This came during the third Ramadan evening organized by Oman Chamber of Commerce and Industry in the Governorate of Musandam. The meeting, which included His Excellency the Deputy Secretary General of the Supreme Council for Planning and local society and businessmen in the Governorate, unveiled the pillars of comprehensive strategy of the Governorate and other related aspects and investment opportunities that will be offered by the strategy. It also shed light on economic and development projects requested by citizens of the Governorate, especially in the health and transport fields. His Excellency Sheikh Abdullah bin Nasser Al-Bakri, Minister of Manpower, in a statement to the Sultanate of Oman Radio and Television, said that until now, more than 14,000 expatriate workers' status were already corrected. Around 8,000 of them were sent home, and the rest are in process. In addition to that, more than 3,000 workers' status were corrected internally through jobs and occupations which are available either in the companies they are enrolled in or by moving to other establishments and companies. He added that the goal beyond that is to organize residency status of violating expatriate workers in the Omani labor market and to give chances to businessmen and the workers to arrange their status situation in a way that goes in line with aspiration of the next period of developing work environment and to make Omani labor market attract more manpower, but to give priority for national manpower. Within the framework of the keenness of the Ministry of Defense and Sultan's Armed Forces to develop the cultural aspects of their personnel, His Excellency Dr. Abdullah bin Nasser Al-Harasi, Chairman of the Public Authority for Radio and Television, presided over the conclusion ceremony of the 11th Cultural Competition of the Ministry of Defense and Sultan's Armed Forces. The event was also attended by Lieutenant General Ahmed bin Harith Al-Nabhani, Chief of Staff for Sultan's Armed Forces. The competition is an annual event that contributes to the cultural movement in the Sultanate. It included individual works in 11 fields, namely Holy Quran memorization, poetry, research, essay, drawings, calligraphy, theoretical work, short story, photography, graphic design, and Q&A contest. At the end of the event, the chief guest distributed trophies and prizes to the winners in various fields of the competition. He also honored trainers who participated in the accompanying workshop and members of organizing committee. The residential facilities such as hotel rooms and apartments increased in the Governorate of Dhofar this year to more than 2,300 hotel rooms and 8,000 rooms at furnished apartments to accommodate the rising number of tourists during Kharif season. Oman Air also rose the number of its flights to Salalah by 11% as to reach 284 two-way flights starting from last May till next September. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Tourism and private establishments ended the preparations of facilities and services that will be provided during the season. The ministry also intensified awareness and promotion campaigns. Statistics showed that the number of visitors to the governorate reached until yesterday is 20,253. Still to come in the news bulletin. In the wilaya of Al Braymi, houses get crowded by relatives visiting each other during Ramadan. Welcome back to the news. In Yemen, Arab coalition staged a series of airstrikes targeting sites controlled by Houthi armed men and forces loyal to former Yemeni president in Sana'a. Media sources said that the airstrikes targeted Hafa camp east of the capital Sana'a and Loza camp in the governorate of Lahj. In the meantime, the governorate of Lahj is witnessing fierce confrontations between popular resistance fighters and the Houthis, who are trying to take control of Lahj and a number of southern governorates for 3 months so far. At least 19 civilians, including 5 children, were killed by a Syrian barrel bomb attack and rebel rocket fire in Aleppo. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said 15 of the civilians, among them 4 of them children and a pregnant woman, were killed in a barrel bomb strike yesterday evening on a rebel-held district of the divided northern city. The other 4 civilians were killed by rebel rockets fire on the government-held district of Medan, also yesterday evening. 20 people were also wounded. More than 220,000 people have been killed in Syria since the conflict began, with anti-government protests in March 2011 that were met with a bloody crackdown. The United Nations said that more than 4 million Syrians have fled abroad since the 2011 outbreak of civil war, the largest number from any crisis in almost 25 years. According to the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, a recent wave of people leaving Syria and an update of Turkish statistics confirmed the tragic milestone. The agency said 7.6 million additional people have been displaced from their homes within Syria by the fighting. The flow of refugees is accelerating only 10 months after the agency said more than 3 million Syrians had fled their country. The more than 1.8 million Syrians in Turkey have made it their biggest host of refugees in the world. Negotiations over Iran's nuclear program launched towards another deadline today, with diplomats reconvening amid persistent uncertainty and vague but seemingly hopeful pronouncements from participants. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said today that parties involved in the negotiations of Iran's nuclear program in Vienna are close to a final agreement. Speaking in Ufa, Russia, at the BRICS summit, Lavrov said Russia wants to see United Nations arms embargo against Iran lifted as soon as possible, but it is up to Tehran to accept the terms of a final nuclear deal. He stressed that the UN Security Council arms embargo had been imposed to force Iran to negotiate, a goal that had long been reached. Lavrov left the talks on Iran's nuclear program in Vienna on Tuesday to attend the summit, but said he would fly back to sign a final agreement at any moment. Iraqi soldiers and 10 Daesh rebels were killed in clashes northeast of Baghdad Iraqi sources said armed confrontations between Iraqi forces and Daesh group took place in areas close to the governorate of Kirkuk and resulted in casualties and injuries from both sides. The Iraqi forces also repelled an attack by Daesh southwest of Samarra, inflicting 7 casualties from Daesh side. Back in the Sultanate, in the Wilayat of Al Buraimi, houses get crowded by families visiting each other during the month of Ramadan. As the last 10 days of this holy month came, images of spirituality are still seen at sacred places with its special manners and values. After Taraweeh prayers, people often visit their relatives and neighbors, showcasing manners of joviality, hospitality, and strengthening relationships. Traditional meals and other variety of food are served during these visits. Families' percentage in the Sultanate rose to 18% between 2003 to 2010, according to a study issued by the National Center for Statistics and Data. The showcase expatriate families are mostly centered in the governorates of Muscat and North Al-Batina by more than 56%, whereas by 42% of Omani families. The average size of Omani family is high, ranging from 7 to 8 persons. In terms of living standards of families, the study indicated that around 92% of Omani families live in medium and big houses, whereas 8% live in small houses containing 2 rooms or less. The study also revealed that only 82.2% of Omani families own their houses. In terms of drinking water sources, the study showcased showed the variety of water sources. 37% of families obtain water from networks linked to their houses, whereas more than 24% of families get water through water carriers. Wells located out of the houses are considered a source of water to almost 7% of families. The study further touched upon education, where it explained that well-educated families live in a better living standard and most uneducated families live in the villages. Muscat Securities Market MSM General Index 30 today added more than 34% to close at 6,436.75 points compared to the last session, which stood at 6,402 at 65 points. The trading value stood at 4.59 million Omani Riyals, comprising a rise by 49.2% compared to the last session, which stood at 3 million Omani Riyals. The market value rose by 0.17% to reach about 15.6 billion Riyals. The MSM said in a report that the value of shares bought by non-Omani investors reached more than 1.67 million Omani Riyals. Now for the general forecast, cloudy skies will prevail over the coastal areas of the nearby mountains of the Governorate of Dhofar, with chances of intermittent drizzles and fog on the mountains. Rest of the Sultanate will have clear to partly cloudy skies with low clouds over parts of the Hajar Mountains and areas overlooking Arabian Sea. Winds will be north to northeasterly light to moderate along the coast of the Sea of Oman, while it will be south to southwesterly light to moderate, occasionally active along the rest of the Sultanate. Seas along the coast of the Arabian Sea will be rough with a maximum wave height of 4 meters, and rest of the coast it will be slight to moderate with a maximum wave height of 1.5 meters. This is the Sultan of Oman Television. Before we enter tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. The Supreme Council for Planning stresses works of the comprehensive development strategy for the Governorate of Musandam is started. His Excellency the Minister of Manpower says the ministry is correcting the expatriate workers' status according to labour market requirements. And 19 civilians are killed by Syrian barrel bomb attack in Aleppo, and the United Nations say more than 4 million Syrians have fled abroad since 2011. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here in the newsroom and the studios, thanks for your company. Good night.